In the eastern Sierra Nevada, beneath one of America's most visited mountain playgrounds, sits a volcanic system so large that its last supereruption changed the landscape of the American West. Mammoth Lakes looks like a ski town, but the town sits beside a sleeping caldera, and the ground above that system has risen by roughly 30 inches over decades of unrest. This is Long Valley. The name does not hit like Yellowstone. It does not carry the same instant fear. But Long Valley Caldera belongs in the same conversation because it is one of America's major silicic volcanic systems. About 760,000 years ago, this place erupted with almost unimaginable force. The eruption blasted out roughly 600 cubic kilometers of magma and spread the Bishop Tuff across eastern California. 600 cubic kilometers. That number is hard to picture, so picture this instead. A volcanic blast so large that the roof over the magma chamber collapsed, leaving behind a depression roughly 17 by 32 kilometers across. A scar big enough to hide a town, a resort economy, highways, lakes, forests, and the illusion that everything under your feet is stable. That scar is Long Valley Caldera. After the Great Eruption, volcanism did not simply stop. The caldera floor changed. Domes rose. Smaller eruptions continued. Magma and hot fluids remained part of the system. The region stayed alive, not in the cinematic sense of boiling lava under every sidewalk, but in the geological sense. Heat, gas, earthquakes, deformation, and hydrothermal activity. That is why scientists watch it. Not because it is erupting today, because it has erupted before, because it has moved before, and because it sits under a place where people do not arrive thinking about volcanoes. They arrive with skis, snowboards, mountain bikes, cabin reservations, hotel bookings, lift passes. Mammoth Lakes is not built on the floor of the giant caldera in the exact cartoon way people imagine, but the community sits inside the broader volcanic field, close enough to the system that the words tourist town and volcano monitoring belong in the same sentence. That is the unsettling part. This is not a remote cone hidden in empty wilderness. This is a landscape people use every season, every year. The biggest warning sign most viewers have never heard of is the bulge, the resurgent dome. In the central part of Long Valley, the ground has risen over time. Measurements over decades have shown about 75 centimeters of uplift in the resurgent dome area. That is close to 30 inches. The land moved upward, not in a movie, not as a rumor, measured by instruments. Scientists have debated what caused that deformation. It could involve magma with gas-rich fluids. It could involve hydrothermal fluids moving through the system. It could involve pressure changes underground. The exact mechanism is complex, and it does not mean a supereruption is imminent. But it does mean the system is not dead. A dead volcano does not lift its floor by feet. A dead volcano does not produce persistent earthquake swarms. A dead volcano does not release volcanic carbon dioxide through the ground. Long Valley is not dead. It is monitored because it still speaks. The earthquakes are part of that language. For decades, the Long Valley region has produced earthquake swarms, periods of shaking that come and go as the crust responds to pressure, fluids, faults, and heat. Most swarms do not lead to eruption. That is important. A responsible script has to say that clearly. But most swarms are also not meaningless. They are stress signals. Small movements in a system built around old magma pathways, hot rock, and a collapsed volcanic chamber. Then there is the gas. At Mammoth Mountain, carbon dioxide has leaked from the ground in dangerous concentrations. In some areas, trees have died because the gas displaced oxygen in the soil. USGS scientists have monitored CO2 emissions in the region because gas movement is one of the ways volcanic systems reveal changes below. You do not need a red river of lava to know heat remains underground. Sometimes the warning is invisible. A gas you cannot see, a tremor you cannot feel, a ground movement too slow for the human eye. Now imagine the worst case chain. Not the Hollywood version, the planning version. A strong earthquake swarm begins. Instruments detect deformation. Gas chemistry shifts. Hydrothermal vents change. Emergency managers receive new information. Scientists issue statements. The public hears words like elevated unrest, volcanic advisory, possible eruption, ash hazard, evacuation planning. And then the hard part begins, because the area is not empty. It is full of roads, lodging, ski infrastructure, seasonal workers, tourists, residents, power lines, water systems, and people who did not plan their weekend around a volcanic alert. A hazard becomes more dangerous when the people inside it are temporary. Residents may understand local alerts. Visitors may not. Residents may know which road leads out. Visitors may follow the same GPS route as everyone else. Residents may recognize Mammoth Mountain as part of a volcanic system. Visitors may see only snow and cabins. That is why tourist zone hazards are different. You are not just warning a town. You are warning whoever happens to be there that day. And if Long Valley ever produced a significant explosive eruption, the problem would not stay in Mammoth. Ash could affect highways across the eastern Sierra. Air traffic could be disrupted. Water systems could be strained. Power equipment could fail. Communities downwind could deal with cleanup, roof loads, respiratory hazards, and economic damage. A volcanic eruption does not need to destroy Los Angeles to harm California. It only needs to interrupt the systems California depends on. Roads, water, power, aircraft, tourism, public trust. This is where the wording matters. Scientists are not saying Long Valley is about to erupt. Current public updates generally treat California volcanoes at normal background levels when no unusual activity is detected. That matters. Panic is not preparedness. But the opposite mistake is also dangerous. Normal does not mean impossible. Quiet does not mean extinct. And no evidence of imminent eruption does not mean no evidence of long-term risk. Long Valley is a volcanic system with a giant past, a moving present, and a monitored future. That is enough to deserve attention. The strange thing is how ordinary everything looks on the surface. A skier clips into bindings. A family loads bags into a hotel room. A cyclist rolls past pine trees. Steam rises from hot ground. A warning sign mentions carbon dioxide. The mountains glow at sunset. And underneath all of it is the buried memory of an eruption that reshaped the West. This is what hidden risk looks like. Not fire in the sky, not panic in the street, not a movie poster volcano, just a town beside a caldera, a dome that rose, a system that still releases gas, a landscape that teaches the same lesson again and again. The most dangerous hazards are not always the ones people fear. Sometimes they are the ones people ski over. Long Valley may sleep for centuries. It may never erupt in our lifetime. That is possible. But if it does wake, the first sign may not be lava. It may be a swarm, a gas reading, a deformation signal, a message from scientists that begins calmly and ends with roads filling faster than anyone expected. That is why monitoring matters. That is why maps matter. That is why hidden volcanoes cannot stay hidden. If a supervolcano scale system can sit beside a resort town and still stay out of most people's imagination, then ask yourself this: what else is hidden in plain sight? In the next Crisis Alert, we return to Washington, where a volcano that stayed quiet for 1,000 years suddenly produced a swarm that forced scientists to look closer. Mount Adams is next.